I can still hear the scratching. Even now, 3 years after they promoted me to senior processing, the sound follows me through the corridors of sub-level 47, pen nibs on parchment, thousands of them, a constant whisper that fills the air like prayers in a cathedral. Except we're not praying, we're processing the dead. My name is Valen Kaur, and I work for the Departamento Munitorum, Mortuary Records Division, stationed in the administrative hive of Talon Secundus. When I tell people what I do on the rare occasions I speak to anyone outside the department, they assume it's about respect, honoring the fallen, maintaining the Emperor's accounting of his servants' sacrifice. They're wrong. We exist because the Imperium needs to know which soldiers are dead so it can stop paying them, can reassign their equipment, can fill their positions with new bodies. The dead are just inventory adjustments. I've been doing this for 9 years. Started as a junior scribe fresh from the scholar, barely 18 standard, still believing the work had dignity. They gave me a desk in the main processing hall, a vast chamber carved from the hive's rock, lined with 10,000 identical desks, each occupied by a clerk in the same grey robes, each one scratching away at casualty reports. The sound was overwhelming at first. I couldn't focus, couldn't think through that endless scratching. But after a week you stop hearing it consciously. It becomes like breathing, just background noise your mind filters out. Except I can't filter it anymore, haven't been able to since I discovered what we're really processing. The work is simple, repetitive. Casualty reports arrive from across the sector, data wafers, parchment scrolls, even occasionally vox transmissions if a regiment is desperate. Each report lists the dead, name, rank, unit designation, cause of death, location, date. Our job is to verify the information, cross-reference it against existing personnel records, update the master ledgers, and forward appropriate notifications. When everything matches, you stamp the form processed and move to the next one. Most reports are straightforward. Guardsman Hector Thule, 47th Cadian Infantry, lasgun wound, grid reference Theta 7, date 44-1. You check that Thule was listed as active duty with the 47th, that the date and location match known combat operations, that his identification code is valid, stamp it, next report. But sometimes things don't match. My first inconsistency came during Year 2, a casualty report for the Mordian 83rd Iron Guard, listing 2,347 deaths during the siege of Hive Praxis. Standard enough, except when I cross-referenced the personnel files. The Mordian 83rd only had 2,000 soldiers total. They'd apparently taken more casualties than they had soldiers. I flagged it for my supervisor, a woman named Krent, who'd been processing the dead for 30 years and had the emotional range of a servitor. She glanced at the discrepancy, made a notation, stamped it, processed under variance, and handed it back. Administrative error, she said. The regiment probably received reinforcements that weren't logged properly. Happens all the time. Shouldn't we verify that? She looked at me like I'd suggested we verify the Emperor's existence. Clerk Corps. We process 10 million casualty reports annually, in this facility alone. If we investigated every minor discrepancy, we'd never complete our quotas. The Mordian 83rd reported casualties. We process them. That's our function. I stamped it. Moved to the next report. Tried not to think about the 347 extra dead soldiers who apparently existed only as paperwork. But after you notice one inconsistency, you start seeing others. A regiment that takes casualties 3 days before it arrives at the battlefield. Soldiers dying in 2 different locations on the same day. Units suffering 50% losses in combat operations that never officially happened. Death dates that precede birth dates. Entire companies that vanish from the records with no casualty reports filed at all. I kept flagging them. Krent kept stamping them, processed under variance. The scratching continued, endless, filling my skull. Year 4 I got moved to records reconciliation. This was theoretically a promotion. Fewer reports to process but more complex cases, the ones that required actual investigation. They gave me a private cubicle carved into the hive stone, lit by a single flickering luminor, lined with filing cabinets containing decades of archived reports. That's when I found the patterns. Some regiments died multiple times. The Talon 19th Desert Raiders suffered complete annihilation in 4037. But I found additional reports showing the same unit, same designation, same command structure, suffering complete annihilation on 3 other occasions between 4038 and 44. 4 total wipeouts of a regiment that officially had 3,000 soldiers. I brought it to Krent. She studied the reports for a long time, her face unreadable. The Departamento Munitorum reuses unit designations, she said finally. When a regiment is destroyed, the name and number can be assigned to a new formation from the same homeworld. These are different regiments sharing a designation, but the command structure is identical. Same colonel, same company captains, same clerical errors. Someone copied an old roster 4 times, her eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something behind the bureaucratic mask. Not quite fear, but something close, wariness. Clerk Corps, what exactly are you suggesting? I didn't know. That was the problem. The inconsistencies were there, undeniable, but I couldn't assemble them into anything coherent. Just a feeling that something was wrong with the numbers, that the dead didn't add up, that the Imperium's accounting of its soldiers' deaths was somehow corrupted. I'm suggesting we might be processing fraudulent reports, I said carefully. To what end? She stamped all 4 reports processed under variance and told me to focus on my quotas, but I couldn't stop looking. Started staying late, pulling archived files, cross-referencing dates and locations and unit designations. The cubicle became my world. Grey stone, dim light, the smell of old parchment and recycled air, the scratching from the main hall still audible through the walls, a constant reminder that thousands of other clerks were processing the dead without question, without doubt, just endlessly transferring names from living ledgers to dead ones. Year 6, I found the first ghost. His name was Morton Krell, listed as a guardsman in the Cadian 8th, died on Hydra Caudatus in 43-8, M41, las gun wound to the chest. Standard casualty report, properly filed, appropriately cross-referenced. I processed it without issue. Then I found him again. Same name, same unit, same identification code. Died on Juralas Gamma in 43-9, M41, artillery strike. Different date, different planet, same soldier. I kept searching, found him 7 more times. Morton Krell died in 9 separate engagements across 4 years, in 6 different subsectors, from causes ranging from combat wounds to disease, to industrial accident during servitor conversion. 9 deaths, 1 soldier, all properly documented and filed. That's when I understood. We weren't just processing the dead, we were creating them. I don't know why. That's what I need you to understand. I spent 3 more years investigating, pulling files, tracking patterns, and I never found the why, only the what. The Administratum Monitorum generates false casualty reports, thousands of them, maybe millions, soldiers who never existed, dying in battles that sometimes didn't happen, their deaths carefully documented and filed, and processed by clerks like me, who check all the right boxes and stamp all the right forms, and never question why the numbers don't match reality. Some of the reports are obvious fabrications, units that don't exist, soldiers with invalid identification codes, deaths that violate basic logic. But others are perfect, indistinguishable from legitimate casualties except through careful cross-referencing that no one ever does, because our quotas don't allow time for thoroughness. I started keeping my own records, a private ledger hidden beneath loose stones in my cubicle, filled with examples of ghosts, duplicates, impossibilities, documented proof that the system was corrupted, that the Imperium's accounting of its dead was fundamentally false. I planned to bring it to someone, an Administratum overseer maybe, or the Arbeits if they had jurisdiction over bureaucratic fraud, but then I discovered the quota system. Each processing facility has targets, annual casualty totals that we're expected to meet, broken down by region, unit type, cause of death. When I was a junior scribe, I thought these were just predictions, estimates based on historical data and current combat operations. They're not, they're requirements. If reported casualties fall below quota, we're expected to make up the difference. That's what the variance stamps mean. When a report doesn't match reality, when the numbers are impossible, or the details are contradictory, we're not correcting errors. We're manufacturing the dead. The Imperium needs to meet its statistical requirements. I don't know who sets the quotas or why they exist. Maybe it's about resources. If you claim fewer casualties than projected, someone questions where the savings went, whether resources were misallocated or stolen. Maybe it's about maintaining morale. Steady, predictable losses are less alarming than chaotic fluctuations. Maybe it's just bureaucratic inertia, quotas set decades ago by dead administrators, enforced now simply because that's how it's always been done. Or maybe something worse. Maybe the Imperium needs the dead for some purpose I can't fathom, some calculation that requires souls to be spent at specific rates, regardless of whether those souls actually existed. I brought my ledger to Krent, laid it on her desk, opened to a page showing 17 instances of the same soldier dying in different circumstances, waited for her response. She looked at it for a long time, then she closed the ledger, slid it back to me, and spoke very quietly. "Clerk Corps, do you understand what you're showing me? proof that we're falsifying casualty reports. You're showing me that you've been conducting unauthorized investigations, accessing restricted files, maintaining private records of classified information, and preparing to report internal department operations to outside authorities. Her voice was flat, dead. These actions constitute multiple violations of Administratum protocol. The minimum sentence is servitor conversion. I stared at her. You're threatening me for discovering fraud. I'm trying to save your life. She leaned forward. Listen carefully. The system works exactly as designed. The quotas exist for reasons neither you nor I are cleared to understand. Our job is to process reports, meet our targets, and maintain the smooth operation of the Monitorum's accounting systems. If you interfere with that operation, you'll be removed permanently. But the reports are false. The dead don't exist. The reports are processed. The ledgers are updated. The system continues. That's all that matters. People's lives are the Imperium's to spend as it sees fit, including ours, especially ours. She pushed the ledger back toward me. Destroy this. Return to your duties. Stop investigating, or I file a report with internal security, and by this time tomorrow you're in a servitor chassis, still processing the dead but without the burden of consciousness. I took the ledger, went back to my cubicle, sat in the dim light, listening to the scratching from the main hall, the endless sound of 10,000 clerks creating deaths that never happened, filing away ghosts and contradictions and impossibilities, feeding the Imperium's insatiable hunger for dead soldiers, even when reality couldn't provide enough. That was 8 months ago. I still have the ledger, hidden in my hab unit now. Still add to it occasionally, though I'm more careful about which files I access. Still process my quota of deaths each day, stamping reports I know are false, transferring names from living to dead that may have never been living at all. The scratching never stops. Even in my hab, in the deep hours when the hive is supposedly quiet, I hear it. Pen on parchment, endless, eternal. The sound of the Imperium maintaining its fictions, processing its ghosts, consuming even the dead it has to invent because the real dead aren't sufficient for whatever calculations drive the machine. They promoted me to senior processing last month. Bigger cubicle, higher clearance, access to more files. Krent called it a reward for renewed focus on duties and abandonment of distracting investigations. She's right that I stopped investigating, wrong about why. I didn't stop because of her threats. I stopped because I found something in the high clearance files, something that answered the question I'd been asking for years. Why? The Imperium doesn't just process the dead, it trades them. Casualty quotas are exchange rates in a system I don't fully understand, a bureaucratic economy where souls are currency and deaths are transactions. When we create ghost soldiers, when we fabricate casualties, we're not committing fraud, we're generating credit. Credit for what? I don't know. The files use terms I don't understand, references to departments that don't appear in any organizational chart I can access. But the pattern is clear. Deaths go in, something comes out. Some kind of payment or exemption or benefit that keeps the machine running, that requires a steady flow of souls whether real or invented. I think about destroying the ledger, walking away, accepting my role in the system, letting the scratching fill my head until I'm just another clerk processing reports without question. It would be easier, safer, the rational choice. But I can't unhear the sound, can't stop seeing the ghosts, can't forget that somewhere, buried in the Imperium's infinite bureaucracy, is a machine that doesn't just kill its soldiers, it kills them again and again, inventing deaths for the already dead, consuming even memory and record and truth itself in service of calculations no one can explain. So I keep the ledger, keep adding to it, not because I think I can stop the system, or expose the truth, or save anyone, but because someone needs to remember that this is happening, that the dead aren't real, that everything we're told about sacrifice and duty and the Emperor's accounting is built on foundations of paper and ink and carefully maintained lies. The scratching continues, will continue forever, probably, long after I'm gone, either transferred to a new position, or converted to a servitor, or simply vanished like so many others who questioned the wrong things. The system doesn't need my belief to function, doesn't need anyone's belief, just needs clerks willing to stamp forms and meet quotas and process the endless dead. I'm writing this during my shift, hidden between pages of legitimate work. Tomorrow I'll file it with my ledger, evidence for no one, testimony to nothing, just another document in an Imperium built on documents, most of them false. The scratching is very loud tonight. 10,000 pens, 10 million deaths, most of them real, some of them not, all of them processed, all of them counted, all of them feeding something hungry and vast and eternal that exists in the spaces between forms and ledgers and carefully maintained lies. I think the Emperor knows, must know, you can't run an Imperium for 10,000 years on this scale without the core systems reflecting some fundamental truth about how power actually works, about what actually keeps the darkness at bay. Maybe the ghosts are necessary. Maybe inventing deaths for soldiers who never lived is somehow less terrible than the alternative. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong, who doesn't understand, whose limited perspective can't accommodate the vast and terrible mathematics required to keep humanity alive. Or maybe we're just clerks in a nightmare, processing horrors we can't comprehend, serving a machine so vast and so broken that even its accounting of death has become a fiction. The scratching continues. I continue. We all continue, until we're processed too.